Hi, folks. This is Bobby Carlton. I'm the editor in chief of Lioness Magazine and also the founder of Innovation Women. And today I am here with Kendall Hope Tucker, and I'm going to allow Kendall to introduce herself and tell you a little bit about what she does or what she did.
Good to see you, Bobby. As Bobby said, my name is Kendall Hope Tucker. I am the former founder, having sold two tech startups. I sold Knock at the end of 2020. We were B2B in-person sales technology, and we sold it to a big marketing conglomerate down in Puerto Rico. And then I started Squads, which eventually turned into Fan Rewards, which we just sold to a fintech company called Future. And those apps, Squads and Fan Rewards, were B2C companies that helped creators to monetize and reward their audiences. So I've done startups across the board. I love technology. And I'm really passionate about talking more and helping people figure out product and growth for early stage companies.
Absolutely. That's terrific. And now you see why I wanted her to introduce herself. Um, one of the things that you said always picks me up, perks up my interest. You said B2C. Now, I know, and probably a lot of people that are watching this know, B2C is hard, 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 hard. And a lot of people say, forget about B2C, go B2B. Let's talk a little bit about that going directly to the consumer.
Yeah. So B2C, business to consumer, is definitely harder in terms of making a monetary return. I think B2B startups, depending on the backing you have and the experience you have, it's probably one out of every 10 companies becomes very successful. I would have to guess B2C is one out of every 100. My friends liken it to catching lightning in a bottle. When it happens, it's unbelievable. But even when it happens, it can be very hard to maintain that growth. Um, Sometimes you have product market fit and you have hundreds or thousands of people joining every single day. Um, but you need a perfect product for consumers. And I don't mean perfect as in no bugs. I mean perfect for exactly what the zeitgeist is looking for. So my first company, I was more conservative. I didn't know as much about startups, so I did B2B, but I'm much more passionate about B2C. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to go in that direction. And even though it wasn't as big of a success, it was amazing. And I will definitely be doing it again.
Okay. Now, when you started Squads, the predecessor to Fan Rewards, you got to like a large number of users
Yeah.
really quickly. And tell us a little bit about how you did that.
Yeah, so Squads was a platform that helped creators to monetize their audiences and reward them. So the idea was you could buy into a creator's fan club, and the earlier you were, the more likely it was to be valuable longer term. And in the meantime, you could get exclusive images and videos, and you could DM with creators. It was super fun. And so we did this big launch for Squads. We had, our plan was 20. I think we had 30 creators, each of whom had over 1 million followers. And they all announced Squads release in the same week. And so we went from 0 users, very much a conceptual app, to over 50,000 users in about 3 days. Um, and it was so exciting. And the app actually didn't break. Um, and I loved it. And we actually saw those users not only continue to log into our platform, but invite their friends. So it was growing very, very quickly. The challenge, and this is the challenge if you grow at a viral scale, is our business model wasn't quite aligned with that level of growth. And so what we didn't realize initially, the first month was gangbusters. Our creators were happy, our users were happy, but this was a platform that sat on crypto rails. So we were backed by USDC. And our idea was you could buy into the fan club once and creators could actually monetize based on transaction fees with people buying and selling their memberships. The challenge with that is if people love it, they're actually not selling their memberships. And so what we found, and we actually, I still watch creator startups. I'm really interested in it. You really have to go back to that monthly recurring revenue model where the creator has a monetary incentive to continue updating their audiences. And that's the old, like, that's the Patreon model. It doesn't need to be on crypto. It needs to be in some way that works for the creators and their fans. And so that's something that we learned, and that's eventually why we like pivoted more towards fan rewards. But we twice went viral for each of our apps and got tens or ultimately hundreds of thousands of users using it, which was really fun.
Wow. I always say that even people who have gone viral before often don't know how to go viral again. So, if you went viral a couple of times, kudos. Any things that you want to suggest to people in terms of, the things that actually helped you with spreading really quickly to a large audience?
Yeah, and virality, I actually think is somewhat predictable, very much enough so that you should hold yourself to certain standards around virality. And so on the growth side, to engage with people, you need an offering that is of interest to them. And there are certain ways to create content that is much more likely to go viral. This changes at a somewhat regular cadence, so you want to be on top of it. But if you're thinking about short form video, you want it to be something that has a hook in the first half second. You want something where at the end of the video, there's some sort of surprise where someone wants to rewatch the video. And you want to encourage people to comment on the video because that makes it much more, it boosts it in the algorithm. And so, for example, if you want people to comment a really easy trick, and this is just a trick, it's not going to make people buy your product. But what you see is people will misspell words on purpose. So then everyone comments and says, hey, you misspelled that word. And so there's ways to get videos to go viral at a fairly regular cadence. You can also follow the trends and try to hop onto those. But the question for an app is, how do you get people not just to watch your video, but rather to feel some sort of FOMO element of fear of missing out, where they're like, I need to either buy that product or download that platform today. Because you have to get over the joy they're having as they scroll through videos. And so you can do time limited offers. That's a great one. You can do limited time offers. So you always see these platforms where they say, hey, we're only letting in X number of people a day. I think that is getting a little overhyped. But there are different ways to make it go viral. And then I actually think the real question is, once someone's in your platform, how do you make it something where they're not in there for 2 minutes, but actually they want to stay there and they're getting value from coming back every single day?
Mm. And gee, Kendall, sounds like you are probably somebody who's successful on TikTok.
I used to be. When I lived in Puerto Rico, I got interested in TikTok. I'm really more of a data person. I wouldn't say I'm the most comfortable in front of the camera. But I wanted to understand how the TikTok algorithm worked. And I felt that there must be a way to solve it, like you would solve a math problem or a business model problem. And so I started posting some videos. I did go viral. My biggest video, I wasn't in it. I had used a software platform to make these Marvel characters do a dance. It was ridiculous. But I posted it and we got something like 5 million views overnight. I remember I went out to a party with my friends. We were all just watching as the TikTok algorithm went mental. And then I realized, oh, you can go viral doing anything. So it's really a question of, why do you want to go viral? And so I then pivoted my content into making videos that teased the tech community, because those are my friends. That's who I care about. They didn't go as big as this weird Marvel thing, but it was actually being seen by people that I really care about. And so I always remind people that it's just like, these numbers don't exist in a vacuum. Like, if you want to be Charlie D'Amelio, then of course you should just be optimizing for a number of views. But the likelihood is, like, if you have a strong and small audience in a targeted niche, that is much more valuable than having a massive random audience.
Yeah. All right. Now, I know you got funding for your company, the last company
Mhm.
that you sold. Did you get funding based on the first iteration or
Yeah.
on the second iteration? The first
Oh,
one?
interesting. Of our ads. My
Hmm.
funding was predominantly people who had invested in my first company. So raising money as a second time founder is substantially easier. You're also very blessed because you know which investors you work well with. And there's different flavors of investors, like there's different flavors of founders. And so I knew with my co-founder, who's an amazing technologist, we knew that we wanted to start this business to consumer company. We didn't know exactly what we wanted it to be. And so we went to our investors from our first company and we said, hey, we had a successful exit. Um, Here's what we're thinking about. Are you interested? And this is also when interest rates were very low. And so we ended up raising about $2 million before we had settled on an idea. And then we ended up raising about $1 million more once we had launched squads. Um, but if anything, we were actually turning money away because we knew that one of the biggest mistakes founders can do is take in too much money when they don't know what they're doing. It just essentially guarantees that you as the founder don't make a good outcome unless you get very, very lucky. So we decided to just try to raise a much smaller amount of money this go around.
Yeah. And had you raised the first time around as well?
Yeah. So my first company, I raised about 6.5 million, maybe a little more towards the end. I don't remember exactly. Um, and that was more money back then than it is now, because now everyone seems to do big rounds if they do a round at all. And so yeah, we had raised a real amount of money. And then when I sold the company, that's when you actually start to think about, oh wow, like this is how it impacts the cap table. And I think on a day to day as a founder, you feel like this entire company is yours. And then you sell it and you're like, oh shoot, I actually own less than 50%. And so I was much more mindful about fundraising and what I wanted that outcome to look like my second time around.
Yeah, I was going to ask, and you actually already answered the question. What are the differences between the first time around and the second time around? You addressed funding. Any
Yeah.
big differences for
Yeah.
you first time to second time? Like, what were the big lessons that you learned with the second company?
Yeah. It's night and day starting a company for the first time or the second. And we'll see about the third. I hope it's more similar to the second. The first time, I mean, I spent 2 years just figuring out very basic things. I hadn't really had a job before. I had consulted for all of a heartbeat. And I just remember setting up accounting and doing taxes and finding lawyers was very overwhelming in a way. Um, and I also didn't know how to lead from a product perspective. How do you test hypotheses and do user testing really quickly and iterate fast? So Mike and I, my co-founder and I, we joke about how we did more in 2 months than I did in the first 2 years at my first company. So setting up was much easier. And then I had already felt what it was like to have product market fit and to have revenue coming in every single month and seeing that growth. Um, and so I think that made me a lot more honest as a second time founder. As a first time founder, I was going to do anything it took for the company to succeed, even if that meant just using my fingernails to try and make something work. And my second time, I was like, I know what it feels like for something to be working. And it shouldn't feel like you're pushing a boulder out the hill every single day. It should feel like the boulder's going down the hill so fast that you're like running to keep up with it. And so I think that kept us a lot more honest as we were trying these different apps and figuring out a business model that worked and figuring out what actually got users excited. And so we were able to grow the platforms much quicker. Um, and it was a really nice journey.
I love that visual of chasing after that boulder as it's picking
Well,
up
you're
speed.
worried. your word is going to hit you, right? Like if you have product market fit, you're responding to support requests in the middle of the night because people are obsessed with your platform. And if you're thinking to yourself, my platform, all it needs is dark mode, and then people will really love it, like that's probably not the real challenge. You need to figure out something that people are obsessed with, even if it has bugs.
Yeah. I mean, for my company, it's one of the things is as a customer of it myself, I know
Mm,
the things that I want. Were
totally.
were you a customer of your own product the second time around? Were you the target audience?
I wouldn't say I was the target audience. Um, I was definitely a customer. I actually just got really close with the creators, and so it was fun to support them and comment on their stuff. Um, for fan rewards, the squads was about people who wanted to be in the squad and connect with the creators. And I was really close with the creators. That definitely uh, had a lot more Gen Z users, so a little bit younger than myself, than me. We had a lot of college kids on it. For the second iteration, which was fan rewards, we gave people rewards for taking actions that helped their favorite creators. So if you watched a YouTube video really fast and you commented, that sort of thing, you would get points. And then we had brand partners who wanted to get in front of these heavily online young people. And I definitely used that. I love consuming content. I love celebrating artists. And so I would get a text that said, a new video's just been posted. Go check it out for X amount of points. And I would be in there watching my YouTube videos, getting my points. And I got some cool gear from some of our partner brands.
All right. So talk to me about the acquisition uh,
Yeah.
for for fan rewards. Like, when did you decide that you wanted to see it be a part of something bigger and different? And talk to me a little bit about the company that acquired the company.
Yeah. When did I decide? I don't know if I've decided yet. Um, but what was happening with fan rewards? We had essentially limitless users. It was so easy to get people onto the platform. They loved it. But to try to go from 0 to 1 in terms of brand partnerships, we ended up partnering with some large marketing aggregators. So they essentially help you make the partnerships and then they take a cut. And so the challenge with that, we were doing extremely well. We were profitable. We were growing really fast. And then our partner shut us off. And it turns out it had been a misunderstanding. And I flew to Colorado and I met with them, but it was so painful. And also every single day we didn't quite know how much they were going to pay us, regardless if we were sending them the same traffic, the same people. So it felt very unstable after that. And I was talking to my co-founder. Our revenue had gone down, particularly for the maybe 1 month that they had shut us off. I was talking to my co-founder and I was like, look, we can go fundraise. There's definitely people interested in investing. Um, and then we can start to bring on brands directly and have those direct relationships, which would definitely shield us from that amount of risk. I was like, but I don't know how fast we'll be able to bring on the brands versus how fast our user base is growing. So it may be something where we would need to artificially cap our growth while we figure out this two-sided marketplace. And I actually made all the documents to fundraise. I made the investor memo, what have you, and I never sent it to anyone. Like my co-founders saw it, of course. So my investors saw it. I was chatting with them. There's something about it I just didn't feel super comfortable with. Like VC has 7-year time horizon. I'm invested in a bunch of VCs and a bunch of startups. And I was like, I'm not sure this time horizon is working correctly for what we're doing. And so Mike had already been advising this company called Future. They're a fintech that gives people rewards for going green. So they have a debit card, and if you get solar energy or if you get an electric vehicle, stuff like that, you can get massive cash back. And so Mike had been talking to them and they said, hey, like this actually feels really relevant. They also needed help on the growth side, thinking about how to work with influencers, how to get the word out. And I ended up getting excited about it because I thought their business model was just smarter than ours. I thought that we had the technological backing. I think we're super strong on product. Um, but I love their business model. Like helping people to monetize their own carbon credits is really cool. Um, so we kind of continued the conversation and then they ended up making us an offer. Um, and I think ethically it felt right to me. I spoke with our investors. They were super comfortable with it. Um, and everyone was really supportive. And so it happened, I guess, the end of last year. Um, and yeah, I'm proud of what we're doing to combine the products.
So what's next for you?
I am leading product at Future, which is very cool. I'm learning about fintech, which I'd never done before, but I really like. Um, Fintech, you have to be a little bit more careful about bugs because obviously people are putting money in. But what a cool thing to learn about and have that trust. And of course, we're FDIC insured and have never lost money. Like they're pretty incredible. So I'm doing that. And then I am investing and helping out some early stage startups. And I think it's time for me to take a few years off from startups just to get my energy back. Everyone says I'm going to start something again, like really soon, but I truly think I need a little bit more time to get my feet under me.
All right. So advice time. You're talking to a whole audience of female founders. What's your big advice?
Just in general.
Just in general.
Interesting.
Anything you want to share. You've got a whole audience of female founders. What's the big take them aside and teach them a lesson that you've learned or a lesson you wish you learned?
Yeah. I always tell not just female founders, I tell all early stage founders, you're going to go to events and you're going to meet people. And occasionally you're going to meet someone who it feels like has everything figured out. And it's going to make you feel like shit. And you're going to think to yourself, they are just smarter than me. They're better connected than me. Why am I even trying to do this? And that person isn't smarter than you or better than you and probably doesn't even have it figured out. Almost certainly they're more insecure than you because they're not willing to share the turbulence of being a startup founder. But I have friends who have raised tons of money and it's been extremely stressful. I have a very dear friend who wasn't able to raise almost any money and ultimately sold his business for 50 million, which he was able to pocket because he hadn't raised money. And so as a founder, I would just make friends with other founders who are willing to share their turbulence. Ideally, you're talking to founders who've done a little bit more than you have, just so that you have an opportunity to learn from them. But don't get stressed about other people's success. Like you don't know what's happening behind closed doors.
All right, great. That was terrific. Thank you again, Kendall Hope Tucker, for walking us through a little bit about what you've experienced as a female founder.
Totally. Good to see you.